Last night at 10 o'clock, we brought you a good question that we've heard being asked pretty often these days. A viewer from Marshall, she wrote to us saying that she's white and she wants to know what she can do when it comes to racial justice.
So Heather brought that question to several people who encouraged us to get uncomfortable. This morning we'll bring you more of those conversations, including what it means to be an ally.
Being a white ally can't be a noun.
It's a verb. It's an action.
It's saying I recognize that racism exists and I'm going to actively try to dismantle it.
It's not an identity where you can say, you know, I read one article, check, I'm a white ally and I'm good to go.
This is not a short-term commitment. It's a long-term commitment, maybe a lifetime commitment.
And for some people, these past 2 months
don't be afraid of this.
Have been the first time they've asked.
I am hopeful because it seems that people can see some of the things that I've known my entire life.
Where do I start?
What people can do is going to look very different on where people are in their racial justice journey.
Ruben Vasquez heads up the YWCA Minneapolis's race equity and public policy programs.
It's really about having white people push themselves out of their comfort zone, because I think that has been a huge problem that we have had.
It could mean speaking to people who don't want to talk about race.
Start listening to people you haven't been listening to before, people from outside of your own community.
To be able to acknowledge their privilege of whiteness, right? And what does that mean? And how can you utilize that privilege to move the work forward?
One of the words that I have been using and other folks have been using is really an accomplice.
Co-conspirator.
An accomplice is willing to tear down some of that system. I don't know if an ally is, and we've had allies before, and still things are not shifting as quickly as we need them to be.
Sarah Bellamy has been engaging people in racial justice work for years, and she says for change to happen, it'll take work and risk.
And I'm going to risk my social capital within my work environment to push with my directors or my CEO or whomever it is, my trustees, to say this changes today. I will not stand by. I will be loud. I will be a squeaky wheel. I will keep showing up until we change our hiring practices.
I definitely think that it's the ally's job, because the problem is that when the person of color is the one who's always saying, why am I not here? Then it seems that the problem is with the person of color. That's not the situation at all. The problem is with the structure.
Professor Duchess Harris suggests that people be willing to try social activities with people who don't look like you.
People ask me all the time, what can I do? And I'll say something and they'll say, that sounds so easy. And I'll say, try it. Right? And then after that, it's like, oh my goodness, I don't know. I don't know.
I also think it's important that we are comfortable with placing ourselves under the leadership of persons of color.
Reverend Curtis DeYoung is the CEO of the Minnesota Council of Churches. 3 years ago, they made an intentional leadership change.
So our president and our vice president are both African Americans, heads of black denominations. If we're going to really address issues of race, let's center the perspective and vision of black leaders.
It's really about being intentional about doing this work and realizing that as you go through that journey, it's okay that it's going to be hard and uncomfortable and messy, and you're going to have bumps along the road, right? Because guess what? As a person of color, that's been my experience for the last 40 years.
I just want to give a really big thank you to everyone I talked with for these conversations, especially because if you watched the story last night, Jason, and I know you were able to do that, we talked about this idea of a big part of doing this racial justice work for white people is not having people of color do it for us.
And what do they mean by that exactly?
So what they mean is there are books that you can go to, talk amongst each other. So read about the history, read authors of color, read about some of the injustices in the past and the injustices now. Talk to your own friends. Point out discussions about race. Point out blatant racism.
But white people aren't going to solve this just by talking to white people, right?
Absolutely
I mean,
not.
We're talking about trying to have more conversations, more meetings, more engagement. What they're saying, if I understand it correctly, is this idea of whenever there's a big news event or cultural event, people will go to their one black friend and say, well, can you help me? Or why is it this way? And that's what, is that what they're talking about? Like, don't, the people you spoke with, don't do that.
And don't do that, but also there are things that we can do on our own.
Got it.
Then what a lot of them told me is once we go out and do the work, and once we start on this journey, and this is, as they mentioned, a lifelong journey, then people want to help. People want to come together. I talked with Pastor Adrian Williams over at the Sanctuary Covenant Church. He's actually pretty skeptical of this word ally because it implies that you have the choice to do this, that you have the choice. And he said he would rather encourage solidarity. So they were just really great conversations. I'm very appreciative of everyone who talked to me to give their time and their insight to encourage us to start getting uncomfortable when having these discussions, you know, and especially, you know, among our white groups of friends and talking about a lot of these inequities that are happening right now.
I like that term, accomplice or co-conspirator, that sort of idea too. Yeah, interesting. Never heard that. The problem with ally as a term brought up, but very interesting to think about. Great stuff. Lots to think about there, and I think a lot of guidance in a way to help people at least start, as you said, this is a lifelong journey.